the mark and go ham sandwich as soon as one little thing goes wrong.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Getting Started in 3-Gun. On this episode of the series, I want to talk about something I think that is really often overlooked, and that is training. Not the practice we do at home with dry fire or even the time spent on the range, but really training with somebody who can, let's say, I don't want to say who knows what they're doing, but somebody who can help you assess your own faults. Now, I don't know if you're anything like me, but I have a really tough time seeing like my own issues. It's much easier for me to see the issues in others. And after spending a bunch of time with, if you've watched the other videos, Trevor Cotter,
7 yards and in, that's a flash. I'm just seeing a flash of dot in the A zone.
Charlie Perez.
Like what I noticed in the videos that you're posting on Instagram and YouTube and that kind of stuff, your own practice.
Yeah.
Is kind of like a general lackadaisicalness of initiating hand speed.
Joe Farewell.
You're going to create different pathways, but as you do it, over time, one path starts to stand out.
All these guys, I've found that what they can do for me that I cannot do for myself is see the issues. Now, there's some things I know I don't do well, but I'm talking about the stuff that I have no idea and I don't know what I don't know to even look for. So, obviously, if you've been watching the series, you've seen a whole bunch of videos I've done, mostly around the dry fire space with Charlie and Trevor, some conversations with Stoker, and even Joe Farewell for that matter. But one thing I got when I was talking to all these guys and interviewing them is every single one of those guys who are top level shooters, they work with somebody else, whether it's a training partner or they have, a legitimate like lesson plan set up or they're taking weekend classes. They all seek out other people to help them assess their shortcomings and design ways to get over it, right? So you might be thinking, well, I've got 60% of it down or something like that. Well, that's cool, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that does not exclude you from wanting to consider spending time with a professional or somebody who you trust to train with to help you figure out where you're lacking in the sport. I was actually having a conversation with a really good shooter the other day about this, and they felt like they wouldn't get a lot of value out of a long, expensive weekend with a professional because they already knew a certain amount. And it wasn't like arrogance, like I already know all that. It was more like, well, would I really get the value? But if you look at all the best shooters in the world, they're training with somebody else constantly. So, where that leaves us is this. Given all of that, what I just said, I had a really cool opportunity to go spend a weekend with 7 or 8 other shooters and Joe Farewell at the Holman Rod and Gun Club in Wisconsin. So, in this whole conversation we had with Joe, the very first thing he said was, well, what do you want to get out of it? So, for me, it was pretty simple. I'm kind of, if you've been watching the series, know I'm starting from scratch and having some good results working my way up. But it's been very kind of steady, right? And I was looking for kind of a shot in the arm on that. The other thing that was a really big deal for me was to learn these open class guns in a way that I don't, currently know how to use them. What are some of the benefits and drawbacks of those from a professional's point of view, and how best to, maximize the benefits and minimize the drawbacks. So that was a big part of it. Making sure that I was really on track with the dot as I'm shooting and how I track that. And those are the basics. And I also told Joe, I said, please do not treat me like I know anything. Like really ground up here. Tell me what I'm missing, what I need to work on. And I got everything I asked for out of the weekend, but there's some other things I really got that I didn't know I was going to get, really mostly from the waist down. And I'm finding as I get more and more into the analysis of these games that there's a lot more time to be made up from the waist down than there is from the waist up. So assuming you have a baseline of basic shooting skills, you can only shoot so much faster. And even if you shaved, these tiny little hundredths or tenths even out of a bunch of shooting practices, they don't add up to the 3/4 of a second for positional work, or the times you're out of position you have to shuffle over to get back into place. There's way more time getting lost there. So Joe worked with us a ton on moving in and out of positions with the different guns, and he talks about it in terms of energy. It's using the appropriate amount of energy to get out of a position and back into a position such that you arrive where you want to be but with no more. Because that little, I don't know if you guys ever noticed, but sometimes there's that little shake at the end when you arrive there until you sort of settle. He would sum that up as being you had too much energy going into that place and you had to burn it off before you could squeeze the shot. So we worked tons of drills with that. We also did some really cool positional work with the rifle, which it turns out every single one of us needed. That's rooftop, prone, barricade, things like that. And throughout the weekend, we would kind of check in and try different things and be like, well, I think it should be this way. And Joe would say, great, run the clock, run the clock, run the clock. And over and over and over again throughout the weekend, you could just see everybody's game elevating up and up and up and up and up.
Stand by.
So, was it worth it? Was it worth the time and energy? So, of course it was. I mean, just nothing else. The shooting experience was fantastic, and the meeting new people was great, and spending time with Joe was awesome. But as I came home, all of a sudden I started noticing stage wins, some match wins. Now, that kind of ended with sort of the smaller matches. My smaller matches, I've gotten a lot better. I'm really seeing a huge difference. And then on the bigger matches, I've been seeing improvement, but I'm still missing the kind of the glue that puts it all together. The longer the stages, the more opportunity that there is for mistakes or positional work that's incorrect, being out of position coming into a space. But I do think that overall I've seen this huge improvement, and it really has showed up. I run a Wednesday night match, and I think since then I've had 3 stage wins and a match win and a second and a third and open. And then even on the weekend match, the big weekend match I had the opportunity to build one of the stages. So I essentially took all the elements of what I had gotten out of my weekend with Joe and built a stage around it, and then took the stage win on that in open. I highly encourage you. Now, this has all been through the filter of Joe Farewell's class, but Joe's great, and I highly recommend him. But there's a bunch of really good trainers across the country, and you might even have somebody right in your neck of the woods that you could train with, or just show up, maybe donate some ammo, or set everything up and take it down for them. That's got value as well if money's an issue. And find someone to start running ideas against, and really have somebody there to assess what you're up to. So I promise you're missing things and you can't see it for yourself. It feels fast maybe to you intellectually. It might even look fast on the camera. But I think if you sat down and had someone really analyze what you're doing on the clock, you'll find all kinds of places where there's low-hanging fruit to pull out time, right? And if you look at even a USPSA course, one gun over 3 positions, every time you mount and dismount that gun is the potential to lose a full second. Boom, boom, boom. So if you're wondering where the guys that are way ahead of you, why they're so much faster than you, it's probably because someone, if they haven't, maybe they have the intelligence around the game or the emotional intelligence to honestly look at themselves and they've found that space, but I'd be willing to bet that somebody else pointed out to them where they were wasting time. You put all that together and the money spent or the time spent on a weekend with a great training partner or a coach, it's absolutely priceless. So if you're interested in Joe Farewell's class, you can find him at farewellfirearms.com. Otherwise, I encourage you to get out there and just seek out people in your neck of the woods to train with. Ultimately, I got a lot of skills out of that weekend, but the number one thing was, with a little bit more mastery of the game that I like to play, it's just made it all that much more fun. I hope you guys are well, and I look forward to seeing you on the range soon.